Save some time.
Word, too. Pay the link.
Okay, you're on.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to Plaistow's Board of Selectmen meeting for November 9th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. And Beth, may I have a roll call, please?
Select Chair, Ms. Hart.
Here.
Select Vice Chair, Mr. Talion.
Here.
Selectman, Mr. Kishka.
Here.
Selectman, Mr. Blen.
Here.
Selectman, Mr. DeRoche.
Here.
And I believe joining us remotely, we have Town Manager, Mr. Pearson, and Assistant Town Manager, Finance Director, Mr. Colby. And also, we have some people from Visions. I don't know if they're on yet, but I believe we have Stephen Whalen, Sandra Sheminsky, Mike Torello, and Pat Donovan.
All right, thank you so much. Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, guys. Our first agenda item is to approve the minutes of October 26th.
Make a motion that we approve the October 26, 2020 Board of Selectmen minutes.
All right.
Second it.
Second, okay. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That motion carries 5-0-0. We also have a second meeting minute to approve for, I believe it's November 4th. So I'd like to have a motion on the floor to approve those
Make a motion to
minutes.
approve the Plaistow Board of Selectmen minutes for November 4th, 2020.
Thank you. May I have a second on that one?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Julian. If there are no discussions on those minutes, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I abstain.
Okay, so the motion carries 4-0-1.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next item agenda is public comment. And as always, if anyone wishes to make a public comment, and especially during our visions portion of our agenda, please feel free to dial that number that you see on the phone, and we'll be happy to answer the phone for you. So at this point, our next item agenda is the release of bond for Eugenia Lane. And there is a motion that's written out for us, and apparently this is a 2-year-old refund for a bond on Eugenia Lane in Plaistow.
I'll make a motion to release the 2-year performance bond for Eugenia Lane in the amount of $16,553.42 plus accrued interest, and to close the account. Dan Garlington, Highway Supervisor, has monitored the street throughout the 2-year period and supports releasing the bond.
All right, and may I have a second for that motion? All right, thank you, Jay. Is there any comment on that or any discussion on that? All right, go ahead, Jay.
No, never mind.
You're okay?
I'm good.
All right, okay, so all those in favor of releasing this bond, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, that motion carries 5-0-0 as well. All right, so the next item agenda is Visions Government Services, and we have asked them to participate in this meeting to answer some questions for us regarding their performance. And as many people know who are listening tonight, this is the vendor that we have contracted for to do our values anew for 2020. We also have our assessor here from Cochran Associates, Mary Beth Walker, and I'm not sure, is that Mr. Whalen that's there as well? We can't hear you. Can you take your mute off?
Should be good to, he's
Okay.
unmuted.
Okay, so all right, so hold on, sir, we're just waiting to, I don't know if you can hear us, but we cannot hear you, so hold on. All right, can you hear us? No?
He's muted again.
All right, if we can't get that going, I'll get him on the phone.
The board can't hear you.
There we go.
Yeah, if you can hear me, I don't think my mute is on, so.
You're good.
Okay.
Can the board hear me?
Yes. All right, so,
Okay.
so,
You cannot hear Mr. Whalen?
We
is that
can-
Mr. Whalen? Yes?
We can hear him.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Would you introduce yourself, sir?
He can't hear
Yeah,
us.
my name is Stephen Whalen. I'm a project manager for Vision Government Solutions.
Okay, thank you so much. So our board members have a number of questions for you, and I believe I will start with them. And my very first question to you, sir, is when did you become aware of the fact that you were behind on your benchmark schedules?
I guess actually probably like a month or so ago. So what we've been trying to do, typically with a project of this size, we always end up taking the live database, and by doing that, we bring it to our office and we can have multiple people working on it. For this example, we couldn't take the database live, so we had to team view in, which allowed one person at a time to data enter. To combat that, we okayed overtime, so we were doing Saturdays and nights to try to catch up, because typically a project of this size, approximately 3,500 parcels, plus field review, et cetera, a few more thousand, we would have multiple people working. So
Oh,
truthfully,
okay.
from the very beginning, I knew I'd be behind schedule somewhat, just because the scale of the project and the amount of people we had data entering, which was one for the most part, except for this last week where we did have the file here live. We did give it back to Mary Beth recently, and we did have 4 people finishing up. But for
All
the
right,
most
well,
part, 90% of the time, we only had one person.
All right, on October 2nd, sir, and I think you will recall that I have been emailing you every month to get an update as to your progress and whether you were on task with your benchmarks. You replied back to me on October 5th with a rather generic answer, and at that point in time, you did not mention to me that you were behind. However, you did mention it to our assessor the very next day. You were concerned that you were 2 weeks behind, and you mentioned that you thought you could catch up. So on October 6th, again that same day, the town agreed to data mailers in lieu of in-house visits. I think we had a conversation where we figured that with COVID-19, it would be in everybody's best interest to keep your staff safe and our residents safe by not actually going into the houses. Can you tell me how that process went?
Yes. I don't actually have a physical count. They are in order, but there's a substantial stack of data mailers. So we sent out 2 groups of data mailers as we were data entering the properties, and we had approximately 50% of them entered. We would send out the data mailer at that point, and then all data mailers that were received, people could mark them up and make changes to the actual data, and then we would put it in the system. So overall, the stack is quite large. I'm sorry I didn't actually count them, but we got enough. Every day we get some. Today we got approximately 6. Typically at the beginning of the project, we were getting large stacks every day, and now we're down to probably a dozen every day. But we sent out 2 data mailers approximately halfway through. I think it was August. The end of August was the first one, and the beginning of October, or the middle of October, was the second data mailer, approximately 50% of the town in each.
Okay, I have some documentation that you sent out data mailers on October 14th. You sent out 1,700 of them. And we had prior made an agreement, a written agreement, that Visions was going to take care of sending a self-addressed stamped envelope with those mailers. I am going to venture to guess that you saved tens of thousands of dollars in payroll costs by not having people go into the homes, and I'm sure that there was also a significant amount of time that was saved by not doing that as well, which perhaps would have given you time to catch up. Now, in those 1,700 mailers that you sent out, you neglected to send out the self-addressed stamped envelopes. Now, you know what? It's not a lot of money. It's very little amount of money, but it speaks volumes to about your lack of attention to detail and to your follow-up on your contractual obligations. And I think we have some more evidence of that later. According to your schedule, you were supposed to send preliminary values to our assessors by 10/19 and mail the hearing notices by 10/21. Our assessor had not heard a word from you until 10/28, when she actually had to contact you to ask you what was going on. Can you explain why you neglected to inform anybody of this?
Sure. I'll just go back to the data mailers for a second. We contract out a private mailing company, and the mailing company was told to include envelopes, self-addressed stamped envelopes. And for the first mailing, they printed all the envelopes for the first and second mailing, and they included them with the first mailing. The second mailing, I have multiple emails that we did call and remind them, and they called back or emailed us back and said that they were going to include an envelope, and they were actually already printed for them to include them, and that was on them. It was on their mistake. We did send multiple emails, and they did send back saying they were going to include an envelope, and in the end, whoever we were emailing, the supervisor, obviously wasn't on the floor of the mailing machines, and they did get sent out without the self-addressed stamped envelope.
The bottom line is that you didn't tell us, and we had to find out from other sources. So I guess that's my concern, is that you were not forthcoming in making sure that we were aware of any of the glitches that were going on. We had to actually chase you and find you and ask you some of these questions. So let's leave that for now, and let me go on to another question, sir. You were supposed to conduct field reviews for commercial properties according to our contract. Was this process followed?
Yes.
Okay, well, if that in fact was followed, are you aware of the fact that on November 3rd, our assessor pulled 26 random commercial property cards, and she checked them for just QA, for random QA. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but out of those 26 tax cards, 23 of them came back with significant gross errors. Some of the properties were listed as wood when they were steel. Another property was listed as wood when it was clearly masonry. There were incorrect classifications. You had a gas station classified as a financial institution. Some of the newly constructed buildings were listed in, quote, fair condition, but buildings that were older and were built before then were listed in good condition. But this one's my favorite. Someone confused 30,000 square feet with 30,000 acres. And so the resultant tax bill was a $10 million tax bill increase to that property. And I have to ask you, is that the way you churn for BTLA challenges? Because that was incredible that someone missed that. You have an 88% fail rate in those random tax cards. How does that happen, sir?
I was aware that they were being reviewed. I never saw any of the reviewed cards for myself to had a chance to look them over and see what the issues were or not. I'd like to review them myself and actually see. When you're looking at the card, there is a line on there for exterior finish, and there's also one line for the framework. So the frame could be wood, but the outside could be something different, and vice versa. So the inside could be metal. It could be a metal frame, but it could actually have wood on the outside. So sometimes it is a little confusing. I don't know if that happened or didn't happen. With the land, we updated the land it was all in acreage and not done quite correctly, so we changed it to square footage, and apparently one slipped by us that hopefully will run a few more last-minute old-to-new reports before anything's sent out, and we'll catch any of those that were mistakes.
Can you tell me also when you requested or received permission to extend your benchmarks? Because I believe according to our contract, you needed to ask permission and you needed to inform the DRA. Can you give us the time that you actually let this Board of Assessors know that, or the DRA, when you arbitrarily changed those dates?
I think I didn't arbitrarily change them. I asked for, I think something like potential, update to the schedule. I don't think I was demanding in any ways for that. And that was a few weeks ago.
We never received that request, and you never spoke to us about adjusting those, and I suspect you also did not inform the DRA of that either, as you were required to do by your contract. I guess I'd like to bring in our town assessor at this point and ask Mary Beth. There was a flurry of activity all day today. Are you comfortable with the ratio report that you received from Visions?
So I just would, if it's all right, I'd like to back up on just a couple of items that you've brought up. It'll only take a couple of minutes. One thing is Mr. Whalen has said a couple of times that the file was unavailable to him, so he could not take the file, so it limited his ability to do data entry. This concerns me because I have forwarded him an email from July when his IT department and our IT department had a discussion through email. And our IT department asked them if they were all set or if they still needed the file. And their IT department said that they were all set, they could go in through TeamViewer. So whether he was speaking for IT or he was speaking for assessing, I don't have any idea, but he was speaking for Vision, and we have no other way of knowing that that was not going to work for them. So if Mr. Whalen knew right off the bat that he was going to be behind on this job, that's of concern. Secondly, the 26 properties that we pulled, we just received the file last week. The file that we had, let me rephrase that. Last week, we had a file that was supposedly had all of the data entry completed. And I asked twice, did this include field review? And I was told that it did include field review. So we reviewed 26 properties, and there were some major errors on those properties. We received a live file today, this morning, and we were able to go over those 26 properties. A lot of those errors were corrected through whatever process they were able to do when they had the live file. There are a few things that still stand out, like there's a property that it's been neglected to have a second floor put on, and that's a commercial property. There are small errors. Mr. Whalen is wondering if we've confused them. We do have a person that is reviewing the properties that's very familiar with the Vision card and how it values. So could it be a possibility? Sure. There's still a lot of small errors on the cards that would need some type of review. The residential properties clearly look like they were field reviewed. The commercial properties, a lot of them have not been visited since July, and they don't show a field review, they just show a measure and list. So from our perspective, when we're looking at the data entry, it does not look like anyone field reviewed those commercial properties. They may have reviewed the sales or select properties, but all of the commercial were not field reviewed. Today, one of my major concerns was what was our ratio going to look like and what was our impact reports going to be, because our values are continuing to go up. We did a statistical reevaluation last year that was just a partial reval. We brought the properties up to 96.9% of market value. Today, when I ran the ratio report, what is that going to look like for us? It's at 88% after reevaluation has been done. So that's quite disconcerting.
So I would, this is Sandra Schmucky, and I would just like to speak to what Mary Beth spoke about. I was not aware that she was looking at a certain time period until this, she sent me the information this morning, and I understood what my overall assessment sale ratio was based on was 2 years worth of qualified sales for the period of April 1st, 2018 through the end of March 2020, which is the 2-year period for getting to evaluations as of April 1st, 2020, which is the valuation date, and the 2 years requirement that's required by the New Hampshire DRA general law. And so when Mary Beth explained that to me, what she was looking at, I have been working since I spoke to her about that all afternoon on adjusting, giving her an example of I'll go in and adjust your assessment sale ratio up to the 100% mark that you would like, and then I will run those reports for you once we're doing it here on the copy of the database, so that we can provide you with that information so the Board of Selectmen may make a correct business decision based on the data that we're providing for them. And what I've been able to do is I've gotten through adjusting a lot of my sales up to that 100% assessment ratio. I am still working on the residential condominiums, and then as soon as I get that done, I will run those reports for the sales period that Mary Beth requested, which is October 2019 through September 2020. And then we'll see where that's at. But I was not aware that that was one of the parameters that the town was looking for. But I am certainly working towards achieving that and getting that done for her.
May I just ask a question? I believe our contract called for a full and complete list and measure, which we call values anew. Are you familiar with what values anew means? And anybody can answer.
Mary Beth clarified it. I am. Mary Beth clarified that to me today. That meant assessment at 100%. And so that was my misunderstanding. I thought that a conservative approach of 0.95 for assessment sale ratio would be acceptable, and that was my failure to check with Mary Beth and find out what parameters she wished to have.
I believe that the whole purpose of our contract was to make sure that you clearly understood that by our New Hampshire law, we are required once every 5 years to bring all properties up to 100% of value. The fact that you were not aware of it until 10 months into this process is incredibly disconcerting to me. I have one more question, too, for Mr. Whalen. Our original schedule called for assessment hearing notices to be mailed on October 21st. Your new updated one indicated that they would be mailed out today, 11/9. May I ask if those hearing notices have been mailed out today?
Oh,
No, they
absolutely not. We would never mail them out without getting the approval of the town on the valuation. So, no, we were not able to achieve that goal.
Okay, so another benchmark has come and gone. And so I guess my question to you is, how do you expect our town to set its tax rates and to get our tax bills out in time when you are so late with your data? How are we going to fix that?
As soon as Mary Beth finishes her review with her team, and if there's any issues, we'll clean them up as fast as we can. And then at that point, the mailing company is on notice that it's going to be sometime within the near future that will be okaying and sending the file down. And then I figured, since we're doing the phone hearings because of safety concerns, that we would put a few of the extra people on the hearings in the phone. Sometimes we might only have a few people doing phone hearings. In this case, we'll try to make up some time by doing more people per day. So we'd be able to have more phone hearings per day in a shorter amount of time, instead of stretching it out over a longer period of time. And that might be able to make up some of the time.
The phone hearings are going to occur after the tax bills are going to be mailed out. So it's at cross purposes. We need to mail those bills out, and we need to get our MS1 done by November 30th. And according to your benchmarks and dates, that is not likely to happen. So I guess I'm at a loss as to how we proceed further with this. Do any of the other selectmen have any questions for Mr. Whalen?
Well, I want a little clarification.
Hold on one second.
I just wanna-
Julian Kishgar is going to ask you a question. Go
I
ahead,
just have a
Julian.
little clarification when you say it'll be out soon. How soon is soon? I mean, we're up against deadlines here. We're responsible to the taxpayers and our citizens in our town. When you say soon, is it 2 weeks from now, 1 week from now, 5 days from now?
No.
What
We-
can we rely on?
As soon as Mary Beth and her team have finished reviewing the values and we can adjust any problems they found, then we'll send them out immediately. But we can't obviously send them out without approval of the town as far as, so we're waiting until they finish their review of the values. Then as soon as they're finished, we'll send them out immediately.
Well, what I'd like to know, what is that guesstimate of time when this will be done?
Mr. Kiska, if I could interrupt, I'm sorry. I've had my hand up for a bit, but you probably can't see it. I can't review values I don't have. The values I have right now show that the ratio is at 88% of market value. For values of new, the contract calls for April 1st, 2020 values to be values anew at 100% of market value. Mr. Whalen was in that meeting with Sam Green when he very clearly said that's the expectation. That's what the revaluation, the RSA says. Sandra is referring to 2 years worth of sales that we have to provide to them for analysis, but you don't use 2 years worth of sales when you have a market moving this fast. You cannot use 2 years worth of sales unless you're time adjusting them for the time that has gone by. So there's no way that 88% of market value would be accepted by your assessor's agent, or I would imagine by the Board of Assessors, because our value range that we need next year going into our recertification process can be no lower than 90%. And that's after another whole year of sales have gone by. So we're in a pickle right now. Mr. Whalen says, I need to review values. I can't accept the values that he has and be in compliance with the state of New Hampshire. That's the problem that I'm in. And that has nothing to do with the integrity of the data that has been given to us. That's just the values alone.
So the answer is, it can't happen anytime soon.
Take your mask down so you can, we can't hear you.
Well, the answer is that it can't be done very soon. Is that what I'm getting?
Mm-hmm.
We sent to Mary Beth later this afternoon or early evening. We sent her 3/4 of the new values updated to 100%. I'm sure she hasn't had a chance to review them. We'll send her the last small amount tomorrow morning, first thing, and that will be at 100% for all of them.
Sir, I don't think you understand
So
that is not good enough. It's too little and it's too late. Go ahead, Mary Beth. Sorry to interrupt you.
So the values were just sent to me at 6:10 this evening, the values that they are working on. And although they are appreciated, I certainly would not have had time to look at them before this meeting. The values that she's raising to 100% are using 2 years worth of sales. They are not benchmarked with the way the state of New Hampshire is going to be doing. State of New Hampshire uses October 1st, 2019 to September 30th, 2020. If those 2 years worth of sales were time adjusted, that would be appropriate. But what she's using is 2.5 years worth of sales to come up with 100% of market value. So my estimate is, she said she was raising them by 5%. If I'm at 88 right now and I add 5% to that, I'm looking at where I'm going to be next year for recertification. And I'm going to be below my 90% unless something very strange happens with the market.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Does any other board member have any questions or comments for Mr. Whalen? Go ahead, John.
So what I'm hearing is the packet that Mary Beth got tonight at 6:10 is not of any value to us.
That's correct.
So we can't use it, so we're back to square one.
That's what it sounds like to me, too.
And then we're going to have Mary Beth work 24/7, even if they did come in. So it doesn't seem feasible that we should continue.
All right. Greg, did you have a comment to make?
Yeah, two comments. First of all, when the number of computers to access through Team Viewer was not adequate, why wasn't the town notified of that so that we could have brought our IT organization in to provide you with additional PCs to be able to dial in? Why was that decision made without any communication to the town or
To us.
to allow us to be able to help you with that or rectify you with that?
So originally, we were going to try to put it on the cloud so we could both access it at the same time. At the time, we didn't realize that Plaistow had an older version of SQL and we have a newer version of SQL, and they're not compatible. So the other option would be we take the live database and then Mary Beth can team view into our data here, and then we could have multiple people working. Or the other choice, which it worked out this way, is that the town kept the live database and we did. So at the very beginning, I did ask to take the database and I was told no. And granted, our IT gentleman who did reply to Mary Beth said it was okay, but that was after she had said no. So we really didn't have much choice but to accept the results. I didn't go over Mary Beth's head because I didn't really think that was right at the time. Maybe it is. I didn't think about a working relationship. So we were stuck with just the one computer to data enter all of the cards or all of the parcels.
Mr. Whalen, who do you perceive that your customers are for this contract?
The town of Plaistow, and then Mary Beth as the assessor.
Okay, so
if I could clarify just for a moment, all of those emails are not with me. Those emails were with Lori, and she said that she wanted us to be able to access the file. And then the next email, and I forwarded those emails to Mr. Whalen if he had taken time to read them. They are not from me at all. Those are between Lori, and she said that she'd like us to have access to it. The next email is from our IT person asking if they were all set, and their IT people saying that they are absolutely all set. The only reason they would need to pull our file is if we wanted to pay for the cloud hosting. So none of that is between me and him. There's been plenty of emails between him and I regarding TeamViewer and access to it, and we've done our best on our end to set it up on a second computer and then allow them to come in and sit at our computer. And then finally, when he said he just could not do it, we had them take the file. But please take a moment to read those emails because they are not between me and him. Those are between the town and your IT people and his IT people. And your IT people offered the file to them, and that was rejected and was said it was all set. So I don't want to have a bunch of pointing fingers, but it's all in writing.
I reviewed them and read them also, and I don't remember seeing in there anywhere it said we're offering you the live file and we're rejecting it because we would never reject it. I think the deal was that we were going to give you team viewer access to view in, but that was denied and you wanted the other way around. You would have it live. So I'll have to read them again, but I think you're mistaken.
I believe our Selectman Talon asked if you knew who your customers were. And I believe you replied, the town of Plaistow and the select board. Is that correct? Do you understand that we are your customers and we are the ones that are paying for services that have not been delivered? Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, I do.
I personally, I cannot speak for the rest of the board, but I am going to tell you that I have virtually no confidence in the accuracy or the completeness of your work, and we are now at the point now where it is well beyond the timeframes when we are able to get out our tax rates and our tax bills. And I am beyond disappointed in your performance, and I'm beyond disappointed that you never reached out to try to work this stuff out with us. I frankly think that you're pointing fingers everywhere, but with where the blame belongs, that it blames squarely on your shoulders, sir. Does anybody else have any other comments? Go ahead, Julian.
Yeah, I'm highly disappointed too. It's almost like if something was not going to happen on time, it should have. Someone just doesn't realize the seriousness of sending out a tax bill on time and what a financial impact it has on a town, especially a small town. It doesn't have a lot of finances beyond what we bring in every year. We got to pay bills. We're responsible to do that. We have to take care of our communities, in all aspects, especially during this crisis. And if there was something going wrong, we should have known way ahead of time than now when it's too late to do anything. And the only one I seem to hear, not being an assessing professional, however, the only one that seems to know what's going on is Mary Beth. That actually seems to know the law, knowing what her values and new is, especially after being contracted to do the job. The first thing someone should have looked up is what does value and new mean, not find out down the road. This is a pretty serious matter, and what we need now is we're up the creek. We have to have a solution of where we're going to go from here, and I guess the only one I trust right now is Mary Beth to give us a plan. Because we have to have a plan to go forward regardless of whose fault it is. We have to move forward and do something.
I agree. If the board has no more other questions for Mr. Whalen, I think we will be addressing this issue either later on during our agenda in non-public or at another meeting. But I agree that there does need to be another path forward because clearly this is not the right one. So, Mr. Whalen, thank you for coming in and for trying to address these concerns that we have. We will, I guess, get back to you when we've made our decision as to whether to move forward with you or not. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next agenda item is the police department purchase of Mike's software. And I'm probably going to turn that over to Mark, both the Mike software and the Phase 3 radio system, because I think he could probably explain it a lot better than I ever could. So, Mark, if you wouldn't mind going over that for us, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I will just say that Greg Colby's with us, and Greg could certainly explain both of these too. But since you called on me, how about if I do the Mike's one, and we'll let I'll let Greg do the second one, which is the motion to reconsider the communications radio dispatch replacement. So the first one, Mike's, the management information computer system has been in the process of being investigated by professionals that we've contracted with and town staff and in collaboration with our state and federal partners. And it is a time where our antiquated software, which is now 26 years old, is at end of life, and it's time to update to new software. So there was several different types of software out there, and one of the reasons that caused the delay is trying to pick the right one, that you're not picking an end of life software, and then we back here in 5 years and saying, geez, we should have picked another one because we picked the wrong one. So we have had the experts research this, and the recommendations were made to us to go with a company that is called CSI. And we have money that has been put away for a couple of years through the Capital Reserve Fund. And then last year, because the police department had a remaining balance in the operating budget, we did not ask for another warrant article in 2020. We used the police department operational budget as an encumbrance to carry over with the anticipation sometime in 2020. Unfortunately, it's a little bit later than we wanted it, to go forward with the purchase. So tonight, the motion before you is to approve the withdrawal of the balance of the MICS Capital Reserve Fund that was created in March of 2018 for the purpose of the MICS software replacement. So the balance in there is $55,952. And then we would use the encumbrance, let me see.
Yep, 25.
We would use the encumbrance of, from 2019 of 25,000. And we would use the remaining balance of $6,179 from the 2020 operating budget. So in short, we have a plan going forward to buy the software. It would exhaust the current capital reserve fund that was created for this purpose. We are confident in picking a software that will last a significant amount of time, 20 plus years. And at the same time, we're also confident that this software will serve the town well in many different areas. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if the board has any at this point in time.
Okay, Mark, I have a question for you. You anticipating closing this reserve fund?
Yes, the way
Okay.
that it's worded is that the motion would approve the withdrawal of the entire balance. So that would exhaust that, that and wouldn't leave any money in it.
Okay, thank you.
So
Go ahead, Greg.
we
yeah.
would need a warrant to remove that capital reserve fund, correct?
Greg is shaking his head in the affirmative, yes.
Yes. Yes, even though there's a zero balance, to technically close it, it needs to go before the voters.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Julian has a question?
Your question. So why would we need to close or remove the fund even at a zero balance? Would we not anticipate sometime in the future needing to do something like this again? Maybe it not be the next
Well-
year or so, but is it
So-
really necessary to remove the fund even at a zero balance?
So I have two answers for you. First answer is as we review the capital, the CIP, we may consider doing a deposit into a similar account or this account if the language of the creation of this account could be extended for the next 20 years. If it could not be because it was designated just for this replacement, then you'd have to create a new warrant article for, storing away money in the CIP for the future. So that would take a little research to know the intent of the drafting of this article that was created in March of 2018.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Jay has a question. Go ahead, Jay.
Mark, is this software strictly for the police department, or is this for both fire and police?
No, it's for the police department.
Yeah, I think, isn't it true that the fire department server and the police server can't really be the same anymore? Was this something we went over a few years ago?
There has to be a separation. There is a separation, and the fire department uses different software.
Yeah, because we used to have a combined one, but then it changed.
Yeah. I believe Greg has a question for you also, Mark.
So, to my understanding, this capital reserve fund was purposely for replacing the mic system.
Yes, it was.
So it's a very, very finite type purpose, and you basically are accomplishing that. And that's kind of,
Yes.
I would think that's the kind of reason why we would probably want to remove this versus a
Correct.
long-term support of our recurring service.
Correct.
All right, so any more questions, board, for
Yeah, we
Mark?
have to look at the wording to see what it
All
actually
right.
said.
All right. So is the board ready to make a motion to approve the withdrawal of this fund?
I'll make a motion to approve the withdrawal of the entire balance of the Mike's Capital Reserve Fund created at the March 2018 town meeting for the purpose of the Mike's software replacement. This balance is approximately $55,952 as of September 30th, 2020.
I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. Is there any further discussion from the board or any questions?
I just want to clarify, this withdrawal with the other funds being specified, as you stated earlier, this will complete that system for now?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so if there's no further discussion, I'm going to take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, that motion carries 500. And now, Mr. Colby, you're on deck.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I have to go in the other room and grab a charger. So I'm hoping that my computer doesn't die, but I'm going to go on mute and get my charger.
Okay. Do you want us to wait for you? No. Okay. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, then,
Oh, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
So the board on August 24th had made, based after a presentation, I believe, by the police department, a motion to pay for the final phase of the communications and radio dispatching system replacement from contingency. After that vote, Sarah Gibbs, the administrative assistant over at the police department, and I were talking, and there has been and was a little bit of confusion about it. So she remembered it a little bit differently, and we ended up doing some research. And back in 2018, the same year that this other fund was established, the voters also approved the final phase of this project to come from capital reserve already. So there wasn't the need to have that vote to take it from contingency. Because they had approved $140,000, of which to date only $66,000 of that money was left. So there is an additional $73,500 approximately to finish the project. So that's why we're asking the board to rescind the use of that money from the contingency, because we can tap into the money that is available in the capital reserve fund.
So we don't really need another motion to do that, since the town has already approved it. Is that correct, Greg?
That is correct. That is correct.
Then I
So we
agree
just-
this is the right way to do, this is the right way to do it
To
then.
reconsider?
No,
Oh,
to resend it.
Rescind it.
We don't have to
Okay.
make another
All
motion.
right, okay. So Greg, may I ask you, is this $73,514.77, is that the total amount that's needed to complete the project? And if so, is this also another reserve fund that will be closed after this project?
Well, there's the final phase, the agreement that is in place right now is approximately $45,000. So
Okay.
that would leave, in the completion of that project, it does leave us some money in case any other contingencies, any other problems are,
Okay.
found in that completion.
Okay.
But
so-
yes, in the future, if it's, we can look at the purpose of that trust fund again, and anything that's left, we could theoretically close out at a future town meeting.
Okay, but at this point, all we need to do is rescind our previous motion from August 24th, is that correct?
That's my opinion. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and Julian's got one more question for you.
well, then I'll make the motion.
I'm sorry, what?
Then I'll make the motion.
Oh, excellent, okay, thank you.
It's black and white right now.
Yep.
I motion to rescind the action taken by the board at the August 24th, 2020 meeting to pay for the final phase of this project from the contingency fund.
Second the motion.
Okay, all right. All right, is there any further discussion or questions? Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Were we all in attendance? Does anyone need to abstain from this?
I know I was in attendance.
Well, it doesn't matter.
I'm not,
Doesn't matter?
n-
Okay.
no, because
vote.
this is a new motion to rescind, so you can all vote on that.
All right. I didn't know if the
Yeah,
original
no, that's a good
people had to
question,
be-
actually. That is a good question.
If we were to reconsider it, then you are correct.
It is a new decision.
Reconsider it and put it back on the floor, then somebody who was there would have to do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so if there's no other questions or comments, I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, that motion also carries 500. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing all the research on that, too. I know it was a little bit thorny for a while. Our next item agenda is a presentation on solar panels for the salt shed. And I just want to preface this by saying that this is going to be a PowerPoint presentation for people to listen to or look at. And I do want to thank Greg Talon for doing all of the work on this to help us understand exactly what we're discussing and voting on. So Greg, you can take it away. Oh, it's right behind Greg, I think. All right, there we go. You have a,
So I did this analysis to give us as a board some basic understanding of the whole idea of building a solar project and how we should be able to evaluate this and what the next steps is. I most importantly would like to get your feedback on the last slide and what the best direction for us to take. So let me just go through this fairly quickly, and you already have the slides. And let's see if we can get this to work now. There we go. So that's what I'm going to cover, some basic facts about solar projects, a little bit about cost of panels and installation, some analysis I did on the return on investment that Greg Colby helped me with, and then the possible next steps. So the real basically stuff I found out is doing this research. A solar panel is approximately 3 feet by 5 feet. It's actually a little bit larger than that. And the salt shed has in its roof a space of about 3,000 square feet we could put panels on. So if you would take the dimensions of the solar panel and put the tracks on them, roughly around 170 panels would fit on the solar roof. Solar panels are rated the same way a light bulb is, by watts. So very typically you'll see 275 watts, 280 watts, up to 320. Some will go up to 400 watts. So the more watts, the more energy they can actually produce. So we have to be very, very careful when we look at the capacity because it's determined by the hours of full sun. And in New Hampshire, we estimate roughly 4.61 sun hours per day. So if you would think about approximately 5 hours, we get full sun on the panels and they're producing at 100%. Now that's not always the case. Typically early in the morning, the panels start to produce a certain amount of energy, and then after the noon appears, they start to decrease. So roughly, though, we can still use this as a number. Whoops, that was good. Okay. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, so all panels produce DC power. They have to be converted or inverted into AC power before they can actually be used to run devices like lights and whatever we have for electrical. And this is a reason why we will see not only panels on a RFP return, but we'll also see these things called inverters, and that's what the inverter does. And there are different kinds of inverters that basically work in different ways with panels. So each person that's making the bid can have a different pairing of panels and inverters. So if we would look at the conversion, there's a lot of loss when we're dealing with solar panels. And I looked for like an average value that a lot of people online use, and it's roughly about 75% of the panel's watt capacity is what they assume that with all those losses, this is what you really are actually producing in terms of power. So I have on that little example there, if you had 74 panels times 325 watts times 75% times 4 hours and 61 hours per day, times 365 days in the year, that would produce approximately 30,000 kilowatt hours. If you use a rate of 29 cents per kilowatt hour, that would produce a savings of $8,000, almost $9,000 each year from the town's electric bill. The way solar panels are used is we can, once they go in through the system, we can either use them to consume energy at the public works garage, or they can actually turn the meter backwards and you basically get a credit. And then you can apply that credit to any electric bill that you have for any of the meters within the town. So it's not just the buildings, but the actual meters. So there's a meter, for example, that lights up all the LED street lights. So if you wanted to, you could apply that savings to that particular bill. So this is how I came up with that calculation. I basically looked at charges that were related to kilowatt hours or usage, and basically removed the customer charge, because the customer charge, you get charged this no matter you use 1 watt or 1,000 watts. You basically get a basic charge. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at the energy that we produce and its worth. So for the town of Plaistow, looking at actual bills that we got from Unitel, we are averaging about 29 cents per kilowatt hour. To just show that in comparison, I did it for my own house, and our consumption is about 25 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's a little bit higher than a residential. Okay? So how do you cost a panel? Interesting, it's not a flat dollar price per panel, it's how many watts it produces. It's kind of like if you were bought a 60-watt light bulb versus a 100-watt light bulb, you would expect the 100-watt light bulb to cost more. And that's exactly how panels are priced. So basically, one of the estimates that I got from online was for New Hampshire, $3.20 per watt. So basically, if you had 170 panels, and they were 325 watt panels, and you multiply that cost, $3.20, you'd basically look at spending about $177,000 to buy those 170 panels, okay?
Yeah.
We only asked for from the taxpayers $64,000. So it was actually $60,000 plus $4,000 contingency for other things that might have come up. But the total amount was only $64,000 rather. And that would be enough with this rate to buy about 60 panels, or 35% of the roof area on the salt shed. Now, when I looked at the two proposals, I found that both proposals were actually beating this $3.20 amount. Revision was around $2.66 per watt, and Taft Solar was $2.94. So both of them are under what the average cost is for New Hampshire. Okay. So you can see on this little chart on the bottom, that's what we would be paying if we were paying the U.S. average, or actually the New Hampshire average, and Revision and Taft Solar, that's what we would be paying if we were looking to purchase 170 panels. Okay? So the next piece was just to do two very simple analysis techniques. One's called net present value, and the other one's called internal rate of return. And these are simply done inside of Excel. They're very easy to do. The first one, net present value, basically looks at the time value of money. So if I said, you want to borrow $100 from me, and you're going to pay me back in the year, if I could make 3% of my money by putting that money in the bank, then I'm going to charge you or have you pay back $103. Do you follow? Because that's $103 is only worth $100 at the end of the year, okay? So that's what net present value does, and when you have a positive net present value, that's a positive step to look at that investment. Internal rate of return is often used to look at your outlay, how much it costs you initially the first year, and how much you're getting back through the years. So if we look at a 25-year time period, you will have a big investment on the first year, and then you'll basically have this $8,000 or $9,000 savings through the 25 years. And you can actually look at this calculation to come up with a percentage where the net present value equals 0. In other words, where it is more profitable to do that if it's a positive percentage. If it's a negative percentage, it means you must be much better to put the money inside the bank, okay? So I won't go into a lot of detail, but I did provide you with the slides and the pictures of the sheets that I actually created. And we used as a discount rate, I just said earning 3% inside the bank. Well, you can't get 3%. And Greg Colby says, well, why don't you use 0.1%? And later on, he said he looked at himself and found out that it was actually closer to 0.03%. So it was like 30% of that 0.1%.
So the numbers look better and better and better.
That's right. The numbers are better and better. So I did one for both, and you can look at those, but I just try to summarize it right here. So the return on... Can you guys put your phone... Can you put yourself on mute? Greg?
It's probably Mark. It's
Can you put
Mark.
yourself on mute? We're hearing a lot of background noise.
It's probably Mark.
Or maybe it's Mark.
The dog got to it.
Or the dog, yeah.
Yeah, the dog. Dog's chewing on the microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
So the return on investment for revision was about 13%, which is really excellent. And if we look at the break-even point as another way of looking at when does an investment get the money back. Normally these solar panels projects, the time period that they normally look at is around 12 to 13 years. So for revision, their break-even was 8.5 years, with $147,000, almost $148,000 for the net present value. That's a very good return on investment.
Especially nowadays, yeah.
Taj Solar, though it's a little bit longer, it's still pretty good. It's still 12% and a little bit longer, 6 months more, 9-year break-even point for a net present value of $132,000. So we would never be able to take this money and put it into an investment that we would earn more for the town than using this, approaching this and investing this in a solar project. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I'll summarize this. These are where I see the things that we could possibly decide to do. One is pick one of these two proposals and go forward and install these panels. The second one would be to look at resubmitting this and trying to get it out to a larger group of installers and come up with a new RFP for the current $64,000 of funds that we currently have from the taxpayers. The third thing we might want to consider doing is coming up with an RFP for 170 panels and have a warrant that would produce the additional funds. So it's approximately about $95,000. That would be done for this coming year. And then the other way to approach this would be to go ahead and move forward now, either with one of the original people that bid for this or an RFP, and go ahead and install the $64,000 worth of panels on the solar roof, and then propose a 2022 warrant where we would basically ask for 96 more panels as a phase 2 of the project. And I kind of, personally, I kind of like the last one. I think we could go ahead and put this in place because the taxpayers put the money forward, And then once that's installed, we can then justify this as, hey, we are saving this much money for the town. We think we should go and make this, fill up the entire roof with panels and have a phase 2 type project or effort. So at this time, I just would like to open it up on the floor and get each of your ideas or suggestions or comments.
Go ahead, Julian, you can go first.
Yeah, few points. The cost per panel that you were using is based upon full installations, and that
The
includes,
cost per panel is
Yes.
not based on installation. It's just based on pure cost.
right.
Right.
Let me finish.
Okay, sure.
Don't argue me. I'm quite familiar with solar systems.
I thought you asked me a question, so I
No, no.
was answering
it's-
it. Sorry, go ahead.
These are averages based on installations,
Yep.
period, which includes installing now, in racks and things like that. One thing is our highway garage doesn't require us to put up new racks because the roof is the rack.
Okay.
They only have to get adapters that hook to the roof, so that brings the cost down right there. The other thing is the conversion, like you say, 75%. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some of
Yep.
it's pure math.
Right.
DC and AC are not correspondence.
Correct.
There's a thing called root mean square, which is RMS, and it's a calculation of about 70% right there.
Yep.
You lose 70% when you go from DC to AC because it's a sine wave, not a straight DC signal. So that's,
Absolutely.
for those that are into science and math and all that,
Yep.
it's a pure calculation. You can do that, and you can actually do that if you wanted to.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
The other principle here is the sooner you do it, the sooner you start saving.
Right,
The other thing in your calculation, which is something to be considered, we're going to be going with possibly with energy aggregation. Our rate will go down.
Yeah.
So that could extend your return on investment past a little bit longer because
Yep.
you're actually saving less because you would have been getting it for less. However, we also know that the price of electricity keeps going up. So it'll probably balance out there. So there's a plus and minus there for people who would have that argument.
Yep.
You might lose a little bit on one, but you're going to gain it back in reality because a good company would actually give you based upon expected increase in rates
Right.
on the average. It's not just, today's rate is the best, is one value. Realistically, it doesn't ever go down, it goes up.
Right.
So as the price of electricity goes up, your savings go up and your return on investment time goes down,
right,
which is probably the way it'll lean.
exactly.
So there's a lot of stuff there, but either way, you're not going to lose.
Right.
If you start saving this year, you've already a year ahead. So it's why put $64,000, leave it in the bank at 0.05% or 0.03%, because that is realistically all you'll ever get for it.
Exactly,
Right now, you could be actually, in a sense, starting to earn back that money at a higher rate rather than it sitting there. So going forward with doing what we can now and doing a second phase, if the voters want to go with that,
you would support going ahead and
going
getting
ahead,
these panels.
as long
up.
as when the project is installed, it doesn't prevent the phase 2. Because if you put them in the wrong way and you put them right in the middle of the roof, it prevents you from doing the rest correctly.
Right,
And I also know that in our area, we do have to worry about snow. I have solar panels, and I'll tell you what, when the snow is on your panels, you get nothing. If it doesn't fall off, if it doesn't slide off properly, or if you put them on the bottom, the snow on the top will get up on top of the panels, and until you get warm weather, it won't melt off.
So
You
Julian,
basically got to put it up on the top and let it slide. So these are things that the installer, if they're going to have a second phase, has to plan.
right.
That you're going to put more later on so that it doesn't cause you the realistic problems that you will have.
If we were to, Julian, if we were to come up with a new RFP, I think that would be a great thing to put in the RFP, that we are planning a second phase of this project. So that
Sometime
when
in the
people
future.
bid for it, they're bidding for phase 1, but they understand that phase 2 is also, they could be very likely to get phase 2 as well. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you for
And
your
as many of us
comments.
said, when these projects are the only projects in our town that when money is put into them, you're actually getting
Getting
the
money
money back.
Yep.
Everything else is kind of like, even though they're useful, important things like safety, financially,
no
they're always a
expense.
money hole.
Right.
It doesn't come back.
so could
Yeah.
you give us a recommendation out of those 4 recommendations in the last page? Which one would you be moving forward with to choose? Because I know, Greg, you indicated D, you'd like to
Yeah.
move forward and then do a second warrant article. What are your thoughts?
I'd like to move forward, but maybe move forward with a new RFP based upon what we want to have, because we didn't have a long-term plan as far as the RFP was concerned.
Agree with you, agree.
We also like I know you said the taxpayers put aside $64,000. Well, the taxpayers didn't really vote on $64,000. They voted on the entire project. Inside the project, it was managed that it'll be about $64,000.
Right.
So really, the voters voted for the entire Phase 2 project of the Public Works facility, which included putting solar panels.
Right.
So
I think
that was the only thing. When you said that, it wasn't exactly voted on as a single item.
there's an important point to this that I
Yeah.
learned, and that is when projects come forward with warrants, we as a board should ask, have you done any financial analysis on this? Do you have a certified estimate? Have you talked to Greg Kobe to get his advice in terms of coming up with whether this is a good financial investment
Yes.
to make?
But if you look at the original response we got back from Revision Energy, they were saying it was 11 years.
Yeah,
Their numbers were based on a different formula, because they're different formulas.
exactly.
All right, so getting back to an original decision, John, do you have any thoughts on where you'd like to go with this? I think what I'm hearing from the two of you is you'd like to send out another RFP with Phase 1, Phase 2, is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing from you guys?
Right.
Okay, John, your thoughts on
I
this?
think we should just move forward with it now.
All right, you're saying that we should install the $64,000 worth of panels and go with one of these vendors, and then look forward to a second RFP? What do you say, Jay, what are your thoughts?
What's the benefit of going out to RFP again for this?
Only that we only got 2 people to respond to it, and there's a hell of a lot more suppliers out there. I don't understand why only 2
Yeah.
people bid on this. One of them is in Maine, and the other one, I believe, is in New Jersey.
Right.
I was shocked. It was like, really?
Revision
You should have got
New
a,
Hampshire.
you should have got
New
quite a
Hampshire,
few.
New Jersey is the other company.
All right,
You should have got
But
Taj.
I think one of the issues was, I sometimes talk to these people, because
Yep.
I'm into the thing, I get curious, I talk to different, and they never knew the RFP was even out there for some reason. Can't explain why.
yeah, we have to do a much better job, all of us, for all RFPs by, really just blanketing, the countryside with that. So you're right.
Henry Herndon, who came here
Yes.
the other meeting,
Yes.
I talked to him about it, and he was also surprised, why did we only get 2? He said it could have been because we put out right at the beginning of the COVID crisis, everyone was in a
Oh.
panic, and it might have been a factor as well.
So is it
That was bad timing.
So is it the will of the board to send out a brand-new RFP? Go ahead, Jay.
So, my thought on this is, I want to move ahead with putting up what we can now, but if it's putting out another RFP for the $64,000 or working with one of the ones that we have now and putting the 70 panels that we can get up there, then we could do that. I do want to see us maybe in 2022, and maybe we put something in the warrant article this year to start to fund that in 2022, that we finish like you have here for
All right.
P.
Yep.
So this year, we would ask to put money in the Energy Committee CIP, and then next year, and then after 2022, if we have the money, then finish it.
Okay, so I'm hearing consensus of the board is that you do want to move forward with this project for the $64,000 that we have available. Would you like to discuss any further which vendor you would like to choose at this point? Or, it seems almost like a moot point, but,
So the consensus I'm taking it is go forward with one of these 2 and do
That's-
the new RFP only for the second phase.
yeah, is that that's kind of what you said too, John, right? So is that a consensus of the board?
Well, in this case, I'd go with.
Yes.
I would go with
Revision?
Energy, because
All
that's
right.
what the Energy Committee voted on.
All right, so if that's a consensus of the board, I'd like to actually get a formal motion so that it's, on the floor and documented. So if someone could put a motion on the
But
floor.
I would also want
Yeah,
some modifications to their estimate based upon there will be a second phase, so that when they install it, they do it with that in mind. I don't want to just come in,
yeah.
put it in, this is
Right.
going to be the whole project. They have to know
Right.
that this is only a first stage.
yeah.
They have to be ready to do the rest if we go further, or else it'll cost us a lot down the road to move them.
I think it's an operational issue. I don't think it would necessarily cost any money if we
Yeah.
were to define that ahead of time for them, that, yes, you have the contract, yes, we're doing another phase, so you need to put the panels here and there. So I don't think that would affect the cost or the price. But we definitely should do that, and, yeah, we definitely should do
So basically,
that.
if you put a warrant article, and we have to have an idea what that number is going to be. So we may have to put an RFP.
Well,
As long as we get it
yeah,
before the time
yeah.
warrant article's gone, or
Yep.
we can estimate based on your thing
Right.
and work from
Well-
that amount.
Well, we could send out, we could basically, if we choose a vendor, we could send out the phase two,
Yes,
Really?
yes,
even
yes.
though we put money in 2022, or like Jay
Jay said,
suggested,
put it
put a
away.
little bit
Yep,
in.
yep.
and Put part of it in, and then do the second year to finish it. I don't know, is that too early
put it
for
off
an
till next-
RFP?
I'm sorry, I didn't
Is
hear
that
you.
too early for an RFP?
It may be, and I want to make sure we take our time with stuff, because obviously, as you've seen, we've had to revise RFPs every which way but loose here, so.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad thing to have some communication with revision to say, we are looking for a phase two. And we would be interested, that this is what our plans are.
Well, we can get a ballpark number so we know what to put in for a warrant article. It
Let-
doesn't mean they're
let's-
going to get the contract, just give us a ballpark number.
Let's take first things first, though, guys, okay? It was the will of the board that they want to move forward with this project.
Yep.
So we need a motion on the floor to
So I'll make a motion.
approve a vendor.
I'll make a
for-
motion that we approve the Revision Energy as a first phase, installing what they are proposing, which I believe was, let me look real quick here. It's 74 solar panels is what their proposal was. It's on page 9, so I have it up on
Okay.
the screen there. So that we would go with the Revision Energy for 74 panels now, and that we would research the cost of a phase two and provide a warrant articles both in 21 and 22 to fund that.
All right, that's not part of the warrant, that's not part of the motion. The only motion I want you to do is to approve
Okay,
revision for the contractor for the $64,000 for this year. And then we can do a separate thing after the fact, but I would need a second on that. Did you second
I'll
that?
second it.
All right, so go ahead, Jay.
I just want to say, great job to the Energy Committee for all that they've done putting this together. And Greg, this is a great presentation, how it
Thank
was
you.
all laid out. So thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
doing all
Thank
that
you.
work. And thank you, Greg Colby, for all your input as well, so.
awesome.
Since we're talking about energy right now, by the way, the town hall is almost done, it's LED
know.
conversion. The only room that's not done is
Is
this
this
room.
room? I know, but it will be. All right, so if there's no further discussion on that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right, so that motion carries 500. And Mark, could the board direct you to make sure that revision is notified that they are the successful bidder for this contract, and let us know when they can start their work, please? Mark's
you ever come back?
gone.
I will, I'll call them and tell them to do the work that they propose.
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate that. All right, and thanks again, Greg. So our next agenda item that we are going to discuss is a warrant article discussion. And again, Greg and I have done a little bit of work on the voter's guide and some warrants. And I think when we spoke together, our goal was to try to not only reduce the number of warrant articles that we've had over the last several years, but also reduce a little bit of the dollar amounts so that we can take a little bit of pressure off our taxpayers for tax-funded warrants. So if you want to take a look at the voter's guide that we kind of preempted here, obviously this is subject for multiple discussions and changes, but this is kind of an overview of what I'd like to have you guys look at for next week. We don't have to make decisions on it right now, but I'd like you to do that when we have our next meeting. So on the first page, we have to follow protocols, and obviously we have to follow things in order. So the first warrant is going to be for town elections. The second one is an operating budget. And then the third one is an operating budget for the water department. The next warrant article must be a bond warrant article. And so we're still in the process of determining what the amount for that is going to be. And I'm hoping that, Greg Colby, that we had some kind of a application sent in by last Friday to make sure that we're kind of on deck for that, and I don't know whether it was done or how much money we're going to ask for the water bond to help our citizens tap into potable water, but I'm sure you can get that information for us for next week. We also put in a warrant article for a contingency fund that seems to have worked out extremely well, year to year to year. If we need it, we use it, and if we don't, it goes back into the unassigned fund balance. So that's like another tool in our toolbox for emergencies. The next warrant article is kind of a placeholder. It indicates fire department 24-hour coverage for EMTs and firefighters. And as you recall, we added $171,000 into our operating budget to cover this. We are handing that budget over, I believe, tomorrow night to the Budget Committee. So if they determine that they don't feel that that is warranted in the operating budget, then we would have a fallback position to put it on as a warrant article and to allow our taxpayers to make that decision as to whether they want 24/7 coverage. So that's sort of a placeholder right now, and we will wait to see what the Budget Committee says on that. The next warrant article is one that's been on our action item list, is to create and deposit to a capital reserve fund for values anew. As you may recall, we had to increase our budget by about $140,000 this year to do our values anew, and in an attempt to try to level fund our budget year to year to year, it may be advisable for us to create this capital reserve fund to sock away money so that your budget's level funded year to year, and we can still do our values anew when they come due.
Yeah, we're required by law, at least every 5 years to do it.
Right.
And that fifth year is always a spike.
Right, and you may want to do it sooner than that, and that's up to future boards,
Gotta
so
have
that will
something
help
there,
you.
yeah.
So can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
If we are doing this and 5 years go by, and now we have the money to be able to do another values new, if the voters do not approve these and we don't have enough money,
Then it goes into the operating budget because it's a
Okay, that's what I
requirement.
thought.
We have to do it.
so it's a budget type thing.
Exactly, and
We'll
all
just
it
add
does
it
is
to-
level fund your budget, and I think people would appreciate the level funding as opposed to the spiky stuff.
This just allows you to put it to the side,
Right, right,
is what it does.
okay. So the next warrant article is for energy deposits, and when some of us are members of the CIP committee, and I believe we're meeting this Thursday as well, Tim Moore, who is the chair of the energy committee, requested that we put $15,000 into the energy reserve, and that's basically to replace the funding that we did for the town lighting. So, I think that's a very reasonable and prudent request, and I think it's very much appreciated, and as Julian has said many times, this is the only committee that ever gives back money back to the
That's not
town.
the committee, it's the expenditure.
Well, it is the expenditure, but the committee is the one that makes the decisions on that. So,
So is this where we would bump this up with Jay's recommendation?
did you want to recommend to bump it more than 15? We will discuss that next
Yeah,
week,
we
but if
can
you want to
next
do
week,
that, that's not a problem, we
But
could
if the
do
board
that.
wants to move ahead with that, if we want to wait in 2022 and finish off the salt shed instead of doing it next year, $100,000 is a lot to ask
Yeah.
for one warrant article. So,
Yep.
Maybe 2-3 years,
Yeah.
that will
Okay.
give us a couple of years to look at,
All right.
the
Well-
return on investment.
Well,
That's an excellent
yeah.
point, and so I'm going to ask you just to look these over. We're not voting on them or making any decisions, but definitely look them over, and then next week, we are going to vote to finalize them, or we'll actually put formal votes on these warrants. So if you want to do that, that's certainly fine.
It would be in the vicinity of $83,000 to put the remaining panels. So
And that's-
we're talking about
yeah.
40,000 or so per year.
Yes, and 40 might be a lot more palatable, especially coming out of COVID and economic disaster.
Or
So-
stretching it out 3 and doing 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, you decide whatever you want, but think about it, and we'll discuss it at our next
Just
meeting.
want to make a point on this.
Yep,
These funds are not only used for the lighting of the street, they're not used for the light, just for the buildings. This could also include replacing an energy-efficient water heater.
Right.
Or insulation where needed, or new windows because they're totally, almost no window there in the wintertime.
Right.
Or we also know that the police department was built and they put they put fluorescent lights in there. At some point, that's gonna come up in an audit, that we're using fluorescent lights and we should have had LED in
Good
the
point.
first
Yep,
place.
good point,
These are
good
all
point.
things that are gonna happen in the future, and there's a lot of lights there.
Yep.
So, it's not just lighting though. It could be any energy thing that needs to be fixed in the building to reduce energy costs.
Exactly, good
And
point.
the
good
point, another
point.
point was, the warrant article last year failed. I don't know why it failed, but for some reason, the voters turned it down.
Yeah, well,
So that's one of the reasons, the Energy Committee is kind of, I guess, cautious. They don't want to put too much because they don't want to see it fail again, and then we have nothing to work with.
well, that was the whole idea of us restricting the number and the dollar amount of warrant articles, because especially during COVID year, where people don't have a lot of discretionary money to spend, so that's exactly the point. All right, so the next warrant articles that you're looking at on page 5, in an effort to be open and transparent with our taxpayers, we need to disclose all of our multi-year contracts and the costs for them. So I have an email out to our town council to ask him if these next 4 warrant articles are appropriate in language. If the taxpayers do not agree, for example, to the multi-year waste removal one, we may need to have a special meeting to determine how we're going to pay for waste removal. So I have that out to Sumner Coleman. He has not gotten back to me yet, but I will make sure that I get some kind of an answer for you guys for the 16th. So that we can move forward with this. But I think we need to disclose all of these future contractual agreements to our taxpayers so that they know what they're paying for ahead of time.
You're saying we have to do this now?
I think we should do it. I believe
I
we have
understand.
to as
I
well.
like the concept, but this
Yeah.
could be a real nightmare with,
Well, we do it
if
with.
it goes no, what do we do? Not
it
pick up our
with-
trash?
We do it with collective bargaining, and we are technically covered for 2021 through the operating budget for both of those, for the assessing and for waste removal, because we've already put it into the operating budget. So that gives you guys a year. If these get voted down, that gives you a year to find out what you're going to do.
Now, the multi-year assessing agreement, this is not the same as the other, okay, this is not the same as the other warrant
No,
article.
no, this is a totally different thing.
But some of these could really put at risk if people just say, I'm not going to vote for, I'm going to vote no for everything.
We'll have to find out.
Some
We'll
people
have to
do
find
that.
out. I know.
Some of my friends do that. They vote no on everything.
But if they do, then you basically are putting it back in the budget every year.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a way around it, but again,
I
this
just want to
is,
make sure if they vote no, that the no means no doesn't bite us in putting it in the budget. I need
no
to,
means no only for 1 year. That's all it means.
well,
because
1
it-
year without getting your trash picked up could be a
But we
nightmare.
have 2021 covered in our operating budget, so even if they vote no on it, you're still covered, you have a year to fix it. Same thing with assessing. All right?
And we have special meetings to bail.
Yeah, and we have a special meeting to say, okay, guys, what do you want to do? All right, so the next one is Fire Department Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund. This just allows us as board members to be agents for the fund, and it allows us to expend money from that fund without having to wait for town vote. And I think we did that last year with the Highway Department, and it makes sense so that we don't hog tie our town manager into waiting to purchase things or our fire chief to purchase things. The next one on the last page is to create and deposit an IT infrastructure fund. We tried to do this last year, and it failed miserably, and it's probably my fault because I lumped it in with another warrant. So we're going to try for it again. I'm sure a number of you have read about municipalities getting hijacked and ransomed, and we really cannot afford to do that. And this is a small amount of money for us to be prepared to increase our software, hardware, and our security systems. That's incredibly important in this day and age. The funding for construction to fix the cap of the Plaistow landfill, that's another issue that we do not have firm numbers on yet. I believe Mark sent out RFPs and got some numbers to take a look at how we are going to do this, and this might be a multi-year approach, but whatever it is that we finally decide on, I think we would like to recommend that it comes out of the cap, the unassigned fund balance, because it's such a large amount of money. And then the last warrant article was at the request of the Budget Committee. They wanted to reduce their committee membership by one, which is perfectly fine, and we can do that. And so we only have about, 12 or 13 warrant articles, and there's less than $100,000 of taxable warrants in here. So I think, the board is trying really hard to make sure we're very sensitive to people's pocketbooks this year.
And hopefully, this one about the ransomware and technology
Yeah,
infrastructure.
Yeah,
Somewhere in this explanation, we made at that time find out how much it has cost the town of Salem because of their attack.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you, it's a lot more than $15,000. It's already cost them.
And the town of Methuen as well.
yes, go ahead, Jay.
I just wanted to throw out there, I think I mentioned this at a previous meeting, but the rec department or rec commission had talked about potential warrant,
For
over the
50.
next couple of years to finish up some of that work around the fields. It's not definite, just throwing it out there that it might be out there, so.
I think it's
There's a meeting this week, so I'm
Yep.
sure there'll be some more information.
All right, well, you can bring that information to us, and I know we've spent over $200,000 this year on the rec fields, and I know, I think Bill Coy and Jen had indicated they were going to need another $50,000 for fencing. That they might want to, and I did talk to them while they were here about that being kind of a significant amount of money at this point in time. And they may want to do a $25,000 one or forego it or whatever. But yeah, you can bring that information back to us.
That was part of the discussion because
Okay.
the field can't be used
Right.
for another year because
Right.
it needs a year to grow the grass. So,
Right.
that will give it a break. You can lessen the amount. So I don't know what the final decision or recommendation is from that committee yet, so I'll find
When are
out.
you meeting, Jay?
Thursday.
All right, so you can bring that information back for us for Monday, right? Okay. All right. So I think we did a pretty decent job on the warrants, and thank you, Greg, for doing that. And I also want to mention that Jay offered to assist Greg on the voter's guide. And so thank you both for doing that. And, in future years, this is really going to be a plug and play. And so you've taken a lot of work off of Greg Colby, so thank you.
When do we offer this to the Budget Committee?
I believe sometime, they're not going to get through their budgets. It's already November. So I'm guessing in November. We can give it to them whenever we approve
Okay,
the warrants. And if we can get all of those warrants approved next week, we can give it to them on the 17th if they
okay.
wish.
okay.
Yeah. And I have the dates for January through March as far as our obligations to do public hearings and all this other happy
Will
stuff.
we have numbers for the budgets, for the operating budget and the water budget?
Probably not till, I'm guessing probably not until December, because don't forget, once they provide their changes,
Yeah.
Julian's going to bring back all of the changes that the Budget Committee had made on the department budgets, and I think we would take a final vote in December at one of our December meetings and say, okay, we'll all be here, we'll all vote whether we want to amend or not, or approve. And then once that's final, I think we have till the end of January to do the MS7, so, and Greg Colby knows all about that stuff, thank God. So, so we're on track with everything, and we are not under the gun for anything. So our next meeting is going to be devoted primarily to discussing our waste management contract, and I have not received information back from them yet, but hopefully they will get back to us before Monday. So I think that's all I have for right now. So Mark, if you're ready to do your town manager's report,
While we're
we'd love
talking
to
about
hear you.
budget,
Yeah, hold on, Mark.
Colby still online?
Greg, are you still here with us?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I had a discussion earlier, and I think Jay DeRoche, who's the alternate to the Budget Committee, and myself, we have not received any of the new spreadsheets for the budget meeting for tomorrow yet. I don't know why we didn't get it. Could you send us the spreadsheets for the meeting tomorrow? So we can look at it.
The information's been forwarded to the chair of the budget committee.
But we didn't receive it. Jay didn't get
All
one, I
right, so
didn't get it.
you know what, maybe you should make a request to Maxine to have her forward copies to you and to make sure that you have hard copies tomorrow night.
Well, hopefully she's
We'll
listening.
get a hard copy tomorrow night.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to see it before, because I want
Right,
to
you-
compare it against the notes of what I
And
took
I
during our
suggest you
meeting.
email her and make sure she adds you onto her email list, because you're our selectman's rep, so you have to be on that
Oh,
list.
could I get the hard copy earlier tomorrow, possibly?
I'll just bring my budget.
Well, I wanted to get the new one with all the changes, and I usually transpose all my notes from the previous onto it, so
All right.
I'm working with the same
All
thing they're
right,
looking at.
shoot her an email and she'll probably send you a copy.
Or I could just come in town, you
Or
gonna
you
make
could
hard
come to
copies
town.
tomorrow anyway?
All right,
Get it tomorrow.
I could get it early, and then I could
okay.
just mark mine up.
All right, okay, problem solved. Okay, so sorry to push you off, Mark. Are you ready to do your town manager's report?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So the Plaistow landfill cap project, met with Kelly Anderson. We're working on the construction documents and the RFP. We have them out to the legal counsel right now for review. There's a couple issues about insurance to make sure that we have all the adequate coverage because of some liability issues. And we're hoping to have that put out either this week or early next week. And it will be a timely response so that we'll have a number to put into the warrant article, or at least to develop an approach to fund the cap for the landfill cap repair and construction in 2021. The Sweet Hill water line project, defleece has made it to the top of the hill and connected the pipe to the water tank. I spoke with our water department today, and the water tank is full. And that's what their goal was, to look for any leaks or testing before they backfill around the tank. The weather's been ideal for this. Yeah. And our ground well down on Arbor Lane is still holding because we actually took out 400,000 gallons and put it in the tank. The good news is that water is not lost in the tank and then can be put back into the storage down at the bottom of the hill. And we still have the same amount of fire protection now, even with that water tank. So the fire department, the water department, and defleece and Underwood engineers are on top of this, and everything is good. The Westville Road waterline project starts tomorrow. If you've driven through the area, you'll notice that they've got signs up. They've got some construction equipment over there. They've got some materials over there. They've been saw cutting the road, and that construction will start tomorrow.
Mark, to interrupt you, I'm sorry. Julian's got a question for you.
I had a question on the water tank. So you're telling me that the water tank is right now acting as part of the fire suppression system?
That's correct.
So it's running at the full pressure as well then?
I can't speak to pressure.
Yeah, because the fire department pressure right now, I think it's 150 PSI versus the water, which is usually around 80 to 85. So that means it's working at a higher pressure than it will in the future. So leaks show up, they'll probably show up.
Okay, well, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good thing.
Okay, sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Town paving, Dan Garlington's reported to me that he'll be coordinating Continental Paving around town for the annual paving of streets in the next couple of weeks. And they're preparing some of the streets for that. As you know, the town elections at the Public Works Garage, construction has resumed on the garage fan installation. It's quite involved to put it in, so we are working on it. It's partially, part of the unit is in, and the other part is going to be going in the next couple of days. The salt shed was painted over the weekend. I checked in with the contractor over the weekend and made a visit. They actually put 3 coats of epoxy paint on the metal. And I've been in touch with Schofield Builders, and they're going to install the plywood above the concrete walls. And then I've also contacted Councilman, and they'll come in and put the lights in. And I asked them for prices on both regular and LED lighting. We're still waiting for P&G to come and install the large barn doors. So everything is good. We took advantage of the good weather for the two-part epoxy paint. And if you have a chance to drive over there, you can look inside and see the inside of the building is all coated with an epoxy paint. I've been in touch with Dean Zanillo several times, and he's meeting with different vendors to get price quotes for cable equipment that to be potentially installed inside the Public Works Garage, because we know there'll be more meetings. We can anticipate the February deliberative session and the March elections. And so Dean is working on that with vendors and getting prices. We had a meeting with Joint Loss Management Committee on last Wednesday. We're trying to meet the requirements to have 4 meetings a year. Obviously, COVID has hurt us with that, but we still met last Wednesday. Following that, we had a staff meeting that we haven't had since COVID started also, but we took advantage of the fact that the Public Works garage was already vacated and sort of set up with tables and chairs. So we really capitalized on that. The road construction next to the public safety complex has started. There's been some tree clearing, and they are moving, Busby Construction is moving forward with that construction. The park drainage project, we went out and got 3 quotes, and Busby again was the lowest proposed, and they're going to be fixing the drainage swales close to the lower softball field and the section of the swale down by Carly's Way that was never cleaned out 2 years ago. They only cleaned out 2 years ago the part that was running through Park, and this is one of the last parts that needed to be done. The highway truck dump body that was approved in 2020 warrant article is coming close to completion. We don't have the truck back. The vendor forgot to order the screens for the top. And they're finishing up the installation and the painting right now, and we have been in contact with them on a weekly basis, and obviously we're very concerned. We need the truck back as soon as possible, and they're working on it. Obviously, there's been a lot of meetings with the assessing conversion meetings between Greg Laurie and I and Mary Beth Walker and the MS1 and setting the tax rate and sending the bills out. And of course, the board already addressed that issue with Vision today. In your folder tonight, I have included the summary sheet for the capital reserve funds that contains when the capital reserve funds were created and who are the agents to expend. I've also, let's see, so the reason why I did that is there's always questions about, well, when was this capital reserve fund created and who's the agents to expend and so forth. And I know I sent it out a couple of years ago, but you know, there are new board members that come in. So I just sent it out to everybody again and gave everybody a hard copy. And also I included, and asked Greg for this today, was a summary of the balances in the capital reserve fund so that you know what we have for reserve funds as of September. So just trying to give the board information that you may or may not need. It also included in your folder is a RFP draft for water operator. If you have a chance to read it and you have any comments, please forward them back to myself and I'll forward them to Underwood. And that's all I have for right now.
So thank you for that report, Mark. You did a lot of stuff for us this week, as always. Action item review list. This is one of my favorite things to do, is cross stuff off the list.
Whose idea was it to give us all the old warrant articles? This is the first time I've gotten this. This is great.
That's great. It is good. Keep them.
This is great.
Don't lose them.
I never got one of those before.
All right, so under action item lists, number 1, warrant article to put money away for values anew, that's been done, so we can cross that off. Number 2, do you guys want to leave the RFP for the solar sheds on there until it's finished? Okay, so we'll
We
leave.
don't need one until we're going to do second phase now. Is that correct? That's what we
Right,
decided?
right, but you're obviously going to leave that on there.
Start working
Okay.
on it, yeah.
And I believe the other thing that we can cross off is number 8, reduce budget committee members to 8 instead of 9.
Was the due date going to stay the same?
What due date, I'm sorry? For
Number
what?
2.
Solar, no.
No, we can't. It's already done and passed, so we'll have to review the.
Give you a
well-
future due date, because
Well, it says 11/30/2020. When do you guys want to up that till? Go ahead, Greg, did you?
Well, I was going to just say, just up it 2 years to 2022.
if I get done early,
All
I'll
right,
give it to you.
11/30/2022?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right,
I'll do it now and get it over with. All right,
okay,
all right.
all righty. And then, so I think we're good with that. We're whittling stuff away little by little. Some of this stuff we really can't do till next year.
Oh, there's one here. Where is it? Oh, number 6. Almost done with that.
You are? Excellent, all right.
I got a lot of help from the fire chief,
Good,
and I'm looking over the stuff he sent me, and we're probably going to get together, and I'll probably have something for you soon.
okay, that's outstanding,
A
all
lot of good
right.
stuff in what he sent me, but not only what the specifications should be from other towns, but also enforcement.
Great. All right, so I only have one thing under other business. I just wanted to remind you all that we are celebrating Veterans Day on Wednesday at 9:30. And I think it's going to be a cloudy day, but it's not going to rain. So I'm hoping that all of you will attend. And I know Julian is going to be providing a speech for us as he does every year. So I invite everybody to come and you know, celebrate, you know, all the people that, you know, made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can live the lives that we live. So I think that's very important. Would you guys like to do your selectmen's reports? Okay.
Let's see. I wasn't able to attend the meeting on the
On the
other
4th,
day,
yeah, yeah.
Work obligation. I was at the polls. I think polls, voting went very well. Yes, there were lines, but I think a lot of great work was done to try to make it as efficient as possible. We had a lot of people that volunteered, so I want to thank everyone for their hard work and dedication to make that day go with successfully. We were out pretty early. I thought we'd be there late, you know,
Yeah,
with
me
the
too.
count, but it went fairly quickly. So there is a rec meeting on Thursday that I can't attend, so I've asked John to attend in my
Okay.
absence. And I'm planning on just going to the budget meeting just to sit.
To sit and listen, okay,
So,
good. All right, thank you. Greg?
So I'll kind of repeat a little bit what Jay said about the polls. Well, one thing I wanted to mention, right from the first thing in the morning, we received nothing but really positive feedback from the voters. They were appreciative. They thanked us for setting things up. They were very happy. I didn't hear a single complaint about parking. I think Greg Kobe and Mark did an excellent job in setting everything up. It was first class. It really was. It was excellent. I don't think they could have done anything else to make it even better because people were just so happy with the fact that the lines moved right along. We had a lot of help, a lot of workers. Things were excellent. I had a conversation with Mark, and I'm so happy that he provided. I never received one of these, but what we'd like to do is create a document that explains the purpose of every capital reserve fund and when it was created and then the balance. And then once that document is created, we'll provide that to Beth just to keep it up to date, and we can put a PDF of it on the website and then make that available to both new selectmen and for new budget committee members.
That's a great
as well.
idea.
Yeah. So I told him I would be happy to help him work on that.
Okay.
And we attended the planning board meeting. Not a lot. There was a workshop. They had a workshop, and there were a lot of discussion about creating I want to say overlay. It was an overlay district.
An overlay district,
Overlay
yeah, and a
district,
mixed
yes.
use potentially. We
Yeah.
still haven't resolved that
Yeah,
yet.
but there was some really good discussions, and there were like two different perspectives from John's perspective and Tim's perspective, but it was a really great discussion, and I learned a lot from just listening to the conversations. So that's a really positive thing that's happening in the planning board, and Jim did a good job to orchestrate that. As I said, I did a lot of research on the solar panels. I learned more about solar panels than I ever wanted to. I have a really good friend. He has a big solar array and hooks it, and he's like, he won't leave me alone now. He's like, when are you going to put solar panels on your house? One thing I did find out as I was doing this and looking at the bills that we pay for electricity in the town, and I told my wife, I says, we use more power than all of the LED streetlights in town.
Shame.
So we are really saving a lot of power from those LED lights.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's remarkable
Yeah.
how much, what the
I
difference
know, that was a
is.
good project.
So
Quality is better too, with the
the
lighting
quality
itself,
is,
yeah.
the quality, the quality of the light is much, much better. The cost, the long-term cost for this is going to be much better. And I really hope that people are looking for other places where we can basically save some power, because, solar might be one of them. There might be others around that we can apply. So hopefully we'll continue with that effort. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Julian, you're on deck. What would you like?
Yes. At the voting poll, the polls weren't really good at voting. I just want to know, during the course of the entire day, we had 2 golf carts. I don't know how many people actually use them. Maybe you only need one. Because I saw the big golf cart, didn't seem like there really was any, because of the parking was so good this time, they didn't really need it.
I think there was an issue with recharging it.
Yeah, it took a long time to recharge them.
It was plugged in for a
Yeah.
long time, and I was a little bit surprised that it ran on batteries, not gas, not propane.
Yeah, I was wondering if we really needed 2 golf carts this next time, because I think maybe because this time the parking was so good, maybe they didn't really need it but still for the older people, I think at least one smaller golf cart was a good idea.
Yep.
It helps them get to and from, but maybe we don't need 2 this time.
Yeah, and also, don't forget, we're not going to have 4,000 people voting in March either, so you might be
Yeah.
exactly right about
The
that.
weather will be colder, so we
It's be
might
awful,
have
I know.
something planned by then.
Okay.
To
We have-
windbreak people waiting in line outside.
Yep, we have
'Cause
plenty of
there'll be
time
wind
to
and
do
cold by
that.
March.
Yep, we have
Yeah,
plenty of time
usually.
to make that decision.
We had another energy meeting, and we talked about basically CIP for energy, things like that. A lot of things got put off, like alternate fuel vehicles, like electric cars, whatever. I basically just told them, we have brand-new cars right now. It's kind of hard to make a plan at this point, so we're not going to push that really fast. And so we have some good ideas on that. I did, again, spoke a little while with our fire chief about house numbering. I know house numbering is not just about aesthetics and look, it's about public safety, which people don't realize. If they can't find your house because they can't see your number, they go into the wrong house, and that can cost you minutes, could cost a life, whatever,
Yeah.
especially if it's a medical emergency. So probably have to have something really good coming up. He came up with some really good things, information.
Do you think you'll be able to bring us something by the end of the year for this, or a policy of
Maybe
some
next
sort?
meeting.
Oh, great, all
Wait,
right.
next meeting is Monday?
Yeah, we'll wait till December, but if we can do it by the end of the year,
Within
that'd be
month.
great. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
It's not much to go through. The
Right.
examples from other towns are really good. It's just a matter of putting together the right combination.
Okay.
And they have some really good ones in there. And I think a big thing we don't also have is enforcement. If they're not right, who enforces it, fines, things like that was in some of those. So they're pretty good stuff from other communities. Again, why do we get all that? Because we have a fire chief that really knows his stuff right now. And I also wanted to put a motion in, because I talked to you about that, Francine, to join Clean Energy of New Hampshire.
That's going to be on our agenda for the 16th.
Oh, it is
For
going to be on
next
the
Monday, it's
agenda?
already an
All right,
agenda
I can
item,
wait then.
yes. Yeah, okay, so
All
don't
right.
worry about that.
That's good.
And that's good, okay, John?
Well, I just personally want to go back to the voting. It was really great. And the large golf cart, what I noticed is, there were some families that used it. But I personally, some of the elderlies, it just came in so handy. Because they just wanted to double back and go out through the front, because their car was over there. They didn't even know we had golf carts.
I know.
Or if they did, they forgot. But, so we took care of it, but it really went better than expected.
Yeah.
You couldn't ask for any better.
True. All right. All set? Okay, so I did very similar things to the boys, and I'm not going to be labored. I also attended the planning board meeting, at the polls all day long. And it really went well, and I really, again, will thank Mark and Greg for the spectacular job that they did getting this ready and being very foresightful about trying to take care of all the little ins and outs. And I also attended Halloween at Park, and it was a really fun and nice thing. And I even got some candy out of it, too. So, kudos to the rec department for trying to bringing back some normalcy to the kids, and we need to do that. So as soon as we can get back to our real lives with everybody's help, the happier everybody will be. So we have folders that have been signed off. The only thing I want to ask the board before we sign off is we do need to make a decision on visions. So I'm going to ask you if you would consider going into non-public next week after our meeting so that we can just finalize what we want to do with this project, okay? And hopefully we'll have a little bit more information between now and then as well. Are you agreed to that?
Yeah, it almost seems like it's too late because we're on a deadline, right? We're past deadline now.
Yes, we most certainly are. Actually, I should ask Greg this.
Mary Beth be with us to make sure we have a good plan in place that'll work?
We definitely will make sure she's involved in it. Greg Colby, if we wait till next Monday to go into non-public to move forward or backwards or sideways, is that going to allow you and Mary Beth enough time to get out the MS1 in time, or do we need to meet now to make a decision? What are your thoughts? I know, I'm sorry. If that's a priority.
I mean, I know the tax rate last year we had set on October 22nd, so we are at least a month behind. If you make a decision next week, there's a lot of, I don't know how long it will take, Mary Beth to do what she needs to do. So it's very, very hard, to know.
I did speak with her before our meeting tonight, and I think she indicated to me that she would be able to work with 2019 values within a relatively short amount of time so that you would be able to get your MS1 done and we could get the tax bills out, but it would be at the 2019 rates. So that's really a basic discussion, I guess, that the board will have. But our priority is to get the MS1 done and the tax bills out, and that's a first priority before we do anything else.
Is there a reason we can't make a decision tonight?
I don't know, you guys, you want to go into non-public right now and make a decision, or what would you like to do? Do you have enough information?
We're holding things up another week.
Are you okay with
Just saying,
that?
what new information are we gonna
Okay.
get within the week?
All right, do you guys mind staying on the line for a little bit longer, and we will go into a non-public? Thank you, Mark. Your thumb is my hero. Thank you.
We can clear this with Mary Beth. She's not online anymore.
All right.
In the morning or
All right.
sometime, so that make sure what we got is gonna work.
All right, so you guys are good with that?
And if we
All
have
right.
to, we'll have an
What
emergency meeting.
category?
Okay, so I think we would do this under reputation.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3 to A, I'm sorry, not A, but C, reputation.
Okay, may I have a second on that?
I second the motion.
Okay, may I have a roll call vote, Beth?
Hart.
Yes.
Giant.
Yes.
Mr. Kishka.
Yes.
Mr. Burns.
Yes?
Mr. Roche.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to end our public meeting at 8:29 PM, and we are going to go into non-public session at 8:30 PM, and we will not be going back into televised public session. So, good night, everybody, and hope you have a good week.